time after this, Jesus went off to the other side of the Sea of Galilee, or of Tiberias, and a large crowd followed him, impressed by the signs he gave by curing the sick. Jesus climbed the hillside and sat down there with his disciples. It was shortly before the Jewish feast of the Passover. Looking up, Jesus saw the crowds approaching and said to Philip, "Where can we buy some bread for these people to eat?" He only said this to test Philip. He himself knew exactly what he was going to do. Philip answered, 200 denarii would not buy enough to give each a small piece." One of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, said, "There is a small boy here with 5 barley loaves and 2 fish, but what is that between so many?" Jesus said to them, "Make the people sit down." There was plenty of grass there, and as many as 5,000 men sat down. Then Jesus took the loaves, gave thanks, and gave them out to all who were sitting ready. He then did the same with the fish, giving out as much as was wanted. When they had eaten enough, he said to the disciples, "Pick up the pieces left over, so that nothing gets wasted." So they picked them up and filled 12 hampers with the scraps left over from the meal of the 5 barley loaves. The people, seeing this sign that he had given, said, "This really is the prophet who has come into this world." Jesus, who could see they were about to come and take him by force and make him king, escaped back to the hills by himself. What a wonderful story. It's really the insertion of the supernatural into our natural lives, isn't it? Some people try to explain this by saying the miracle is in the hearts of the people, the selfish people who all had their little lunches packed somewhere away, suddenly started producing them and sharing with their neighbours who didn't have anything. Maybe that did happen. But if we look at it as Jesus doing something for his people, it's something about how God treats us. God treats us so abundantly. We are so lucky. We live in a fabulous land. We have lovely environment. We have poor people, but not the poor that you see in some countries overseas. What is our task in all this? Jesus was doing this to build the kingdom and to show people how they ought to be treating others. He was doing it to show the abundance of his Father, the Father we call God. His mother, the mother we call God. And what mother or father amongst ours would not feed their children when they're hungry? We hear stories today of people who drink the water that the food is cooked in and give the children the food. And this is what Jesus is doing. He's showing us the importance of giving abundantly, sharing out of our abundance, and indeed sometimes sharing out of our non-abundance with those who don't even have as much as we have. John also puts emphasis in his writing of this gospel, and incidentally this story is in the other 3 gospels as well, but John puts emphasis on the bread, Jesus as the bread of life, referring to the manna in the desert that God provided for the people when they were travelling. There's layers and layers of meaning. And it's up to each one of us to unpack a layer for ourselves. And maybe it's like the onion. You peel one layer off and you find something beneath it. So you peel another layer off and there's something else. Hopefully, as you travel through the coming week, you will be able to sit and reflect on this wonderful piece of gospel reading and listen to what God is saying in your hearts. May Jesus be with you as you travel.